Hello and welcome. Is everybody in, Dean? Are we okay? Welcome to everybody to this At Your Voice. We seem to have a different style each time we come in, and this one is a webinar. So please let's go forward in this style and welcome everyone to our webinar on social care, which seems to be a very, very hot topic in our world. We all tend to know about our health, and we go to A&E, we go to our GP, we go where we feel we need to go for our health. Often we're not really sure in what we do, where we go for our health, but our social care we're not really sure about. So thank you for joining Your Voice at Healthwatch today. And I'm Pauline Mounting, and I will be chairing a very eloquent panel of I'm going to call you experts, but again, our experts, we all have, we all have knowledge, but we all have to go elsewhere for other knowledge. So I will introduce everyone individually. I'm just going to give you a bit of an overview first and foremost of what today is about, and then I will invite each one individually to present to them what their expertise is. Today is really about we've looked at over the last 18 months at the challenges that we've all had, and yet social care has had needed reforms for ever since day one, really. But the Care Act brought in many reforms, and nationally, ahead of the Queen's speech in May, I know Jeremy Hunt made very big statements that problems needed fixing, but they won't help unless the social care is fixed. They won't help the NHS. And his definition was of a civilised society as one where you look after our older citizens with dignity and respect. And we don't do that. The pandemic has exposed the fragility of our social care system. If we're not going to fix it now, we never will. Those were his statements. And so he's making roads in to deal with that from a national perspective. We also know that nationally there's more than 250,000 people living in care homes. That's a huge amount of people, and that's probably engaged loads of problems we know from the pandemic. We have Melanie here that's going to be our expert in that field. So many people out there have said that they want to feel listened to and involved in decisions about their care. NICE, which is the National Institute for Health and Excellence, they have developed a guidance around that and what should your care look like. So they've created 6 things that say, what you feel that you want out there as the public, and said, what should that look like? And it's things like, live your life with dignity and independence, which I guess we all want that throughout our lives. And having control. Often, we want control, but we're not able to have control. But, we have a mindset that wants that control. Now, currently, I think many of us will have seen news last night, and it was very focused on the aspect of care workers, and that was people coming into our home. Now, often that gets mixed up with carers, which as family carers, I was one, and I know there are excess of 85,000 of us out there doing our own family caring. But these are about care workers. And I know, again, Melanie has a link into that arena. But again, we have Lincolnshire, which we are a huge rural county. And that we have to cover a lot of miles to reach the very rural, isolated areas. So that was sort of a snapshot of national picture, but we are local, we keep abreast of what's going on. And Lincolnshire County Council does have an adult social care market position statement, which can be found on their website. That's about social care. And I know Una will send that out after this webinar. So without further ado, that's to try and give you a bit of an overview of some of the areas we will try and cover today. It is a 2-hour session. We have had questions that have come in from the public already. We probably won't get all the answers, not in 2 hours, especially when the government have been trying for years. But what we will do is we will try and answer as many questions as we can, and as honestly as we can. What we may not do is get to them all, but we will endeavour to answer them after this event. So we will take note of everything, and Una will come back to everyone and answer them after. So without further ado, I do have Lorraine in the spotlight, who is going to say who she is and what she does. So thanks, Lorraine, and there we go, off you go.
Thanks, Pauline. Morning, everyone. My name's Lorraine Graves, and I'm Interim Head of Mental Health Services in Adult Social Care. Basically, my role, some of you may be aware that we commission out our adult social care functions to the Lincolnshire Partnership Foundation Trust to deliver on our behalf, although we still hold statutory responsibility for those services. And I oversee those services that LPFT deliver for us in terms of social care. Another part of my role is the deprivation of liberty safeguards, which is ensuring people's Article 5 rights when they're not free to leave when they're in hospital or a care home. That's the two sort of key areas of my role, but the other sort of main part is I am the adult social care lead for the transformation work around mental health, so working with the wider system, so colleagues in health, CCGs, voluntary sector, public health, etc., to try and improve the mental health services in Lincolnshire.
Thanks, Lorraine. Thank you. Who would like to go next? Dean's on this spotlight button. Who are you going to put in the spotlight, Dean? There we go. Next one in. Hi, Chris.
Hello there, everyone. So absolutely brilliant to be here today. I'm Chris Erskine. I'm the lead. Sorry, I'm not. I'm the Principal Social Worker and Improvement and Development Lead. Have to forgive me. Recent change in role. So I'm really proud to say that I was appointed to the Principal Social Worker role back in 2019. I qualified as a social worker back in 2010. I'm really passionate about having a system and culture within the organisation that supports really effective social work practice, but also our occupational therapists, nurses, our unregistered colleagues as well, but also making sure that we provide that link between our frontline practitioners and the organisation, the strategic elements of that as well. We work really hard to make sure we've got the right environment for our frontline teams, so they've got excellent quality supervision, guidance, development opportunities, so that we can support people to live healthy, safe and independent lives. So I work really closely with the lead professional team, our workforce quality development team, colleagues, operational teams and managers right across the county as well. So I guess the key part of what I do is to support that continuous improvement culture within the organisation. We work really hard to learn from our mistakes as well as what we do well, and also work with our partners within the other parts of the system. So it could be colleagues within health, our district councils, to provide the best support that we possibly can do. We part of my the other part of my role in connection with that is also as the improvement and development project lead. So that's very much about identifying improvements that we can make across health and social care, but in particularly in relation to adult care and community well-being. So the people that we've got in the room today to think about what are we currently doing well, but where are there areas for improvement so that we can meet our future challenges. But that really does focus on making sure that the work we do with people supports people to live a good life and the life that they want to lead.
Thanks, Chris. That's really important. It's not only about the challenges, it is about, you know, about ways to improve. So thank you for that. Thank you. And who are you going to put next in the spotlight, Dean? Oh, there we go, Matthew.
Morning, everyone. Thanks for having me. Yeah, my name's Matthew Fisher. I'm the neighbourhood lead for the East Lindsey neighbourhood in Lincolnshire. So neighbourhood working is part of an initiative across the health and care system and in Lincolnshire to look at dividing the county into a number of places, a number of neighbourhoods where actually services can be evolved and developed at very much a place-based level, understanding what the population health needs and challenges are of particular areas, and developing and adapting services and coordinating services to work together effectively as possible to meet the challenges of those areas. So as neighbourhood leads, we work very closely with primary care networks, which are the networks of GP practices who are being encouraged and required now to work together and collaborate on the delivery of certain services, things such as the vaccination programme, things such as enhanced services for older people and for people living in care homes. So we, as neighbourhood leads, we support that process, but as well we support the way that health and social care colleagues work together to help support the people with most complex needs and people that often don't have a very good experience of social care services or health and care services for that matter, who maybe fall between gaps or maybe have complexities in their lives that mean they don't fit easily into the different services and have needs that put them at risk of being high intensity users of services, having frequent admissions. So we work very closely to say, what can we do differently? How can we think about this to achieve the best outcome for people and keep them at home and as independent as possible? So I'm actually a social worker by background, 20 plus years working in a local authority, but over the last 2 or 3 years I've been hosted now by community health services. But as neighbourhood leads, our expectation is we have a certain amount of organisational agnostic is the term that gets used, that we sit across the health and care system, and whilst hosted by Links Community Health Services, I very much want to be seen as part of a kind of a system resource that works across the various different healthcare organisations, the local authority, but importantly as well the voluntary and community sector and the provider sector as well, to try and champion what the needs are locally. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Matthew. That's really good, and it, from sort of my point of view and thinking about what I said at the beginning about, you know, how do we get into it, sounds like from what you just said that you're connecting in an area, like you say, an area base. So where I was talking about the rurality of Lincolnshire, it's almost like you're saying, okay, so we're going into that rural Lincolnshire and we're going to go, oh, well, that's a pocket that's different to that pocket over there, and we're treating this pocket as an individual. Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, the urban nature of Lincoln is very different to the very rural nature of East Lindsey, which again is very, very different to the coastal area and the deprivation and some of the challenges that's seen in coastal areas. Each area will have very different challenges. You know, very strong agricultural challenges that sit in the south of the county. So yeah, that local focus is really important to getting it right.
That's really, really, really powerful, and thank you for explaining it in that way. So thank you, Matthew. And next one in the spotlight, who's it going to be? Oh, there we go. Hi, Melanie.
Hi, good morning. My name's Melanie Weatherly and I am chair of Lincolnshire Care Association. which is the organisation that represents care homes, nursing homes, home care providers, daycare providers, anybody who provides adult social care in Lincolnshire. We work together in both the independent and the voluntary sector. That's my part-time role. My day job is I'm actually a provider of home care myself in some of the rural areas of Lincolnshire, so I do get the challenges on a day-to-day basis as well. We've been very fortunate in Lincolnshire in that we do work very closely as a health and care system. I know all the other panelists really well. We've met on a daily basis this time last year when the pandemic was at its height. And I think that has been very good for the citizens that we support, but also essential to our workforce who have gone through the most appalling times in the last 18 months. So I do think yes, we have the rurality, we have the deprivation, we have a lot of challenges, but by working together as a system, I think we do try to overcome a lot of those challenges. And I'm sure that's going to continue as we go forward. But I would definitely say, well, there's not enough of us, there's not enough time, but we need to make the most effective use of that we possibly can. And a lot of our services are provided or paid for by the state, but we also work with people who are choosing to buy their own care, and try to work very closely with family members, Pauline, so that we can do a combined holistic support both for the person at the centre and the family who may want to continue to do what they've always done or actually may need a break. And I think it's really important that we see all of us as essential to supporting these most precious people in our society.
Thanks, Melanie. And I think you bring in a really valuable point there, because where we, where we talk about carers and carers, you know, there's always been that lack of understanding, etc. But like you say, if you are enabled in a way to make that connectivity, and that's supportive, that's so supportive in so many ways, and as with Matthew, it's bringing that together, and it's so I suppose rewarding to hear all those things coming together, of you connecting all those dots. And I will say, we all know what happened with care homes way back last year. I don't think we heard Lincolnshire mentioned, did we?
We had a very good wave one. This winter was a lot more challenging. We were very, and I think a lot of what happened in wave one, Pauline, was because we did pull together, and some of our care homes did struggle. They did have COVID, but everybody was there, the community health services, adult social care, to support them. But we can't detract from the fact that people lost their lives, and more importantly, people lost their normal connectivity to the community. Yeah. Care homes had to close for safety, but I think in Lincolnshire, again, we did manage to keep the connections up with Zoom and all kinds of things, and we opened up earlier when it was safe and then closed down again when it wasn't safe. So I think, yes, wave one we were incredibly lucky in Lincolnshire. Wave two, not so, because we didn't have the immunity. So when it hit us at Christmas, it really did hit us.
Okay. Well, thanks, Melanie. And there'll be some questions coming in, I know, but thank you. And there must be one left. So I don't need to know who the spotlight is. Thank you, Robin.
Yeah, last but not least. Good morning, everybody, and thanks for the opportunity to join the panel. Must say, first and foremost, this is my first one, so it's a learning experience for me. And you may be wondering why somebody from public health is here. If it had been 18 months ago, some of you may have wondered what public health actually did, but obviously with the pandemic, and we've come to the forefront, and everything that my colleague panel members have said rings true with public health. And fundamentally, what we're looking at doing is helping people live longer, but more healthily, with a better quality of life, and independently. There's a lot of talk about all of the vaccinations and all of the different strains of COVID and so on and so forth over the year. That fundamentally is one area of our job, is health protection, and this is where we've stepped forward for that. But we do commission a number of services such as carers, the carer service, housing related support, help for people who want to stop smoking, change their lifestyle around physical activity, increase physical activity, healthy eating, that side of things. We've got a wellbeing service that supports people to live independently, that came from the Old Supporting People programme. We also have statutory functions such as sexual health services, substance misuse services, and something called NHS health checks, which is really, really important to support the health of the population. My role specifically isn't clinical. I'm not a public health consultant, so when it comes down to the discussions around the pandemic, etc., I have people that I bring in if I need to for that particular case. But my area is specifically around making sure that the services that we commission actually meet the needs of the individuals, so the people of Lincolnshire, rather than just having a service because we have to have a statutory function. We have the service that actually listens to the voice of the individuals, looks at how it works with other parts of the organisations. And from a public health perspective, we sit between health and social care. So we are ideally placed to be able to work with our adult care colleagues and our NHS colleagues and third sector as well, to look at how we can reduce the gap between the healthiest people in Lincolnshire and the least healthy people in Lincolnshire by obviously raising the health of the least healthy. And that's one of our prime aims, is to work within the system to enable that to happen.
Thank you. Well, you're very welcome, because obviously JVT, he's like the forerunner, isn't he? So he's opened up public health for you.
Absolutely. It's nice when you speak to people and you say public health, and they've all got a story about an interaction with, whether it's to do with a vaccination or whether it's to do with isolating or whether it's to do with the clap on a Thursday or something like that, rather than them expecting you to be an environmental health officer, which is what it always used to be, and they think you'd be shutting premises down. So I mean, public health has been to the forefront, but I would say it's part of that broader system, as my panel colleagues have said. Particularly Melanie was saying about everybody pulling together. That to me is the heart of this, is that services have pulled together and supported each other, and particularly the people of Lincolnshire, which is fundamentally why we're all here.
And it is not forgetting the people that, like you say, want to stay healthy, but also want to shift into that, you know, I don't know what to do, but I want to get to be healthy, but I really don't know what to do. And there must be so many of us out there that are in that bracket of, you know, I've shifted through this pandemic, and actually I've worked from home, I haven't moved very far, and actually now I feel a bit sluggish. So there must be an element of that in a lot of us now that says, what do I do now? Because I can't afford to go to the gym.
Yeah,
I probably have eaten all the wrong things, and now can I come to you and can you sort me out?
That's a really interesting point, because the way we have to look at things, particularly from a public health perspective, we look at it from a generational change. So things aren't going to happen overnight. I'm not going to lose weight overnight, that type of thing. But what it needs to be is very person-centered. So somebody may be in the same position as your example, Pauline, but look at it from a different angle. So it may be about reducing their eating, or it may be looking to have a healthier diet, or it may be looking at it from that physical exercise perspective, but they're all linked together. It may particularly be from a mental health perspective, because the evidence obviously is there that physical activity, etc., and the amount of alcohol that is units that are drunk and smoking and things like that has an impact on mental health. So it's trying to get that, not a one size fits all. So it is for an individual to make those choices. Excuse my dog in the background if you can hear. It's like the health checks. that we have. We in Lincolnshire, we have a very, very, very good record of the number of people who take up health checks, which basically is to go to your GP and have various different checks to look at your blood pressure and so on. But then if the feedback is, well, yes, you're slightly overweight, or you are quite a bit overweight, or you need to do this, you need to do that, it's the so what. What is there, like you say, to enable that to happen, which is one of the reasons we brought in our integrated lifestyle service program, which looks at it from a, use the word holistic used so much, but it's reduce people's smoking. That may be the first stage, but then when you reduce smoking, that can cause increased eating, increased appetite.
Yeah.
So you look at that plan of a healthy eating program at the same time. It may be somebody doesn't want to do that, they just want to stop smoking first. So it's getting that tailored service that's really important. It comes back to Chris's point about looking at how we can improve services consistently or constantly.
And I suppose the way I see it with the panel that I have here in front of me is very much, if we get it right, you will all work with me. You will work with me. If we don't get it right, I will be a pinball in your machine, and I will just be pinged and ponged, and I won't know what's going on. But if it's right, then I will move from you, and I will be able to navigate that system for my betterment. And like you say, all of you have sort of said this in your way, because, you know, we might start with you, we might end up with Melanie, you know, in a care home. We're not sure of that path, but we would want to, in a way, because if we're with Melanie, it means we are aging, and we've aged, and we've got to that point where we need that care. So it's not to say that we want to be with you, Melanie, but we do want to be with you. If that makes sense. It makes logical sense in that aging process. So so yes, it's sort of, it's there, isn't it? We put some generic questions together when we started this process, and we sort of said, well, you know, what is social care? And what's changed over the years, that fact and fiction, and it's a bit like what we said about, you know, the public health. You know, I remember the days of when I was in catering, you know, and it was that sort of, oh gosh, is a man in a white coat with a white, as soon as he put his white hat on, you knew that it was the environmental health guy, and it was, oh, whatever. But, you know, again, with all of these things, it depends the area in which you're most prominent in, and that fact and fiction, and everybody has a more diverse arena than just a one-trick pony. And it's about what's the expectation of social care. Well, I think we've just shown with our panel of six people, 5 people, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 people, including myself, that there is a huge area of social care, and we're only touching, you know, the tip of the iceberg in a way. So do my choices and views matter? Well, you've all said they do. I think you've all emphasised that you know, the feedback mechanism and the fact that people really, really do matter. And should social care services have a positive impact on my quality of life and those around me? So one of the things that we are as Healthwatch is we are a public facing organisation, and we have a public audience, and we invite public to put in questions, which I do have quite a few questions that I will ask probably on behalf of our public. However, I do have a lady in the audience that would also like to ask her question. So Dean, can we get Maria to come on and ask her question to our panel? I think if the panel have had opportunity to look in the chat bar, she has posed it, but Marie would like to come on and ask the question herself. So without further ado, can you do that for us, Dean? Who's there? There we are. Hi, Maria.
Hi. Hi.
Hi. Thank you for coming on, and thank you for posing your question.
Yeah, thanks. That's okay. Where do I start?
Okay, sweetie.
Yeah.
Yeah, just say it as it is. It's just you and me. There's nobody else on this call. It's just you and me. Just imagine you're talking to me.
Just been 5 years now since still struggling with my son Daniel. He was diagnosed with Asperger's at the age of 10. Had help at school, but well, not really help at secondary school. Not very much at all. A lot of nothing's really happened for him really. We've moved up here 18 months ago from Kent. The services we received in Bromley weren't very good either. I have to say, because we had what they call a robust assessment of financial for Daniel. But I wanted a social care assessment. They've got the wrong end of the stick, Bromley. The social worker was abominable. The assessment was I just had to throw it out the window. Yeah, and we've moved up here 18 months ago to get a better life, and we're still in the same position. I mean, the social worker we did have, she was good, although now we're not getting any help because Daniel won't accept the help, and we're on a steps to change waiting list, which I don't know when we're going to see somebody for him.
Okay.
Yeah.
So first and foremost, Maria, I'm going to ask you, are you getting any help?
Not really, no.
Okay.
Although I'm at home at the moment because I'm self-isolating. I don't have COVID, but I was asked to self-isolate by work because I've received an app on my phone, so I'm at home at the moment, but I'm back to work Friday, and that's what gives me my sanity, my work. Yeah, but I'm not receiving any help as such, no.
Okay, so that might be something that you perhaps might benefit from, because at the moment you're obviously been a carer for your son for quite some considerable time, and yes, it it does have an impact, obviously. Now the other thing I will say is we don't have any magic wands. Can't wave any wands, but we will do our best to answer your questions. Anybody who's best to answer Maria?
Pauline, I'm happy to pick this one up.
Okay.
I mean, obviously Maria's very distressed, and understandably so. I think there's a lot of elements posed in Maria's question, and we probably have to look into it a bit more. So I'm happy for Maria to have my contact details, and then I will look into it for her and see what support we can get, what support her son will accept, because the difficulty we've got is if he's not prepared to accept help, we cannot force that on him if he's got capacity to refuse that. But we can certainly look into getting, additional help for Maria, and I can follow up on the steps to change and things. So if you want to contact me directly, Maria, I'll look into that for you.
Okay. Thank you, Lorraine. I think that's really interesting, because obviously Maria's come to Lincolnshire for a better life, and again, that's what Lincolnshire should be, really. It's a slower, it's a softer, gentler way of life. It isn't the hustle and bustle, and ultimately there are elements where, yes, if you can find that better life, then it should be, with your family as well, and with that support. You came from Bromley in Kent. And have you got any carer support up here?
I am part of Carers First, but I don't know what they can offer me as a carer, really. I mean, I've been to I've done some of their things like online, but because I work now, which I started like full-time work since March, I don't really access a lot of their stuff at the moment. As my job, I work at Beaver Castle. That's my sanity. Yeah. So
once you can get back into there, that's going to be a lovely sort of, absolutely. So, yeah, so thank you, Lorraine, for offering that support and how to connect in. But as Lorraine rightly says, we can't force your son, so maybe that's something that you can have an impact on in getting your son in readiness to accept that support.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe that's something you can work on, because obviously everybody that you invite in is going to be a stranger to him, aren't they?
Yeah, of course.
So,
Yeah.
you know, if you can start that work process beforehand.
He did meet the social worker, like literally back in, the last time he saw was March. But what happened? Something happened, and he, well, they were trying to get sort of on the first stage of supported living, but he just didn't want to know. And then my husband was here at the time, and I was at work, and my husband was told to go and speak to him up in his bedroom, and he wouldn't. Obviously, Daniel wouldn't come down. But they didn't make the effort to go and speak to him outside his bedroom, which I thought they would have done, to try and coax him a little bit.
I suppose that's the difficulty, isn't
yeah.
it? It's like if you can support, like we've heard from all the different areas that the people work in, and the difficulty is that you're with your son 24/7. So if you can get him ready and ready to accept, because the understanding, I suppose the support worker, and I don't fully know, but they've got to take in a lot of factual information about your son. But also what we have to do remember, as Lorraine said, he is an adult. He is at the age of consent.
I do understand that.
So he can't be forced. He can't be forced into anything, regardless of his condition, without taking a different route, which is not one you probably want to take down the mental health route. So I suppose from a personal point of view, that from you've got to get that readiness for him to accept. And that's just me. I mean, the panel might say I'm wrong in saying that. That would be from my point of view of caring and looking at how you can support your son to make that transition and get him ready to accept whoever comes in, because that will be a stranger coming into him, and he might reject it straight away. So that might be the battle that you're up against. So you've got a really good contact there with Lorraine to support you. So I don't want you to I don't want it to go sour straight away. So hopefully you know, take it and we'll get you connected, and also if that works, you can see if that works, we can almost bottle that and you can say, look, this is how I got this. Not through this medium, but by you supporting your son to accept that social worker coming into your home, because it's your home as well. That's what you have to remember.
Pauline,
thank you, Lorraine. Oh yeah,
sorry, can I just say that please don't be totally demoralised, Maria. We have seen, you know, cases like this before, and we have been able to turn them around. So you know, we need to have that talk and see the best route to go, and then we'll see.
So you'll be in touch afterwards, Lorraine. We'll be in touch afterwards.
We'll connect you up. We'll connect you up. Don't worry. You take care.
Thank you.
Don't have a cup of coffee now. If you want to listen to the rest of this, carry on, but do get a coffee as well. All right. Take care. Bye.
Before Maria goes, can I just say, Maria, please be kind to you.
Yes.
You are as important in this as your son. So be kind to you first. And if you're positive, you may be able to support him, but we need you to look after yourself, which often carers don't.
Absolutely. 100%, Melanie. And that's why I asked straight away, is Maria getting any help? But you're absolutely right. Always put ourselves at the back of the queue. So I can see that Zoe Miles has put in that speaking to Maria, so that can be passed on. Una, will you pick all these up and pass them on to Maria, please? and we'll keep in contact and get that support. Right, we do have some touching the iceberg. We need to put ourselves in people's shoes as they don't understand who is there and where to go, and sometimes get frustrated and upset. I had 2 ladies on the phone in tears yesterday just because they were spoken to and lack of explanation. That's Bex in Sleaford for dementia support. Yeah. So yeah, it is hard, Bex, to navigate the system. So yeah, I have a few more questions now that have come in that I will ask on behalf of the public. So one is about, my husband has dementia and has had 3 strokes in 2020. He is now home but feeling unsettled and lonely. We have some support in place, though this has been reduced to 3 lunchtime calls and social evening call. He can walk a little but gets frustrated very quickly and cannot be left alone. The community mental health team suggested the Stroke Association. What plans are in place to get people like my husband back into activities? And this has been sent in by a member of the Kingfisher support group in Skegness, but she's not attending the event. So I suppose it's, the way I'm reading it, she's had support, got some support, but wants to continue something where she can get a continuum of some sort of rehabilitation, it sounds like, support. So what and how and where, who wants to pick that one up?
I'm happy to pick that one up, Pauline.
Okay.
I'm sure the members of the panel will chip in as well, potentially. I think it's really important to recognise that it's been a really challenging year, if not more, for many people as day services and many other activities people have been involved in have needed to follow the guidance that's been set out by the government to ensure we keep people as safe as they possibly can be over the last 18 months. What I would say is if adult care are involved, then it would be about requesting a review of the support that's currently in place for the person. There are plans, and we are seeing increasingly day opportunities in particular, reopening, increasing capacity certainly internally, and working closely with the wider market to ensure things get back up and running in a safe way. We've seen some really good examples of providers working really creatively to keep people involved in activities. Some of that's been remotely, some of it's been done on a one-to-one basis, so people getting creative. But that doesn't take away from the fact it has been a really challenging time for people, and it's absolutely not lost on us the impact that's had on people's kind of wider support networks and carers in particular. If adult care isn't kind of currently involved at the moment, I would suggest that there's maybe a contact to our customer service centre for a conversation about what sort of things might help. But as I say, if there's already someone involved, it's about having that ongoing conversation with the person about understanding what the woman's husband had enjoyed in the past, and really thinking about how perhaps it can be matched up at the moment and with anything that's kind of going on locally for him as well. And I think just to touch on the previous conversation, it's just really important that she's got the support as carer as well. So I'd be asking those questions as the carer support there. Has there been a carer's assessment in place as well? But those were my thoughts on the question there, on the information we've got. But I'd welcome anyone else's thoughts in addition to that as well.
It does seem she's put that she suggested the Stroke Association. Doesn't say that she's actually been to the Stroke Association. So do we have much of a I suppose, is there a lot of involvement from the Stroke Association in Lincolnshire? I don't know. Does Matthew, do you know that, Matthew?
I don't know the answer to the question, the extent to which the Stroke Association are active in Skegness, for example, if this is where this is coming from, but certainly as a neighbourhood response, we'd certainly have an understanding, and I'd expect the Skegness neighbourhood coordinators to have an understanding of what's going on in Skegness, specific to the Stroke Association and that area. What I was going to add in as well is just in terms of the question about what plans are there to get people involved in activities. I think a big thing to mention would be something called social prescribing, which has got a investment in it from the primary care networks to support the development of support the employment of social prescribing link workers. So in each primary care network now, there are staff who are employed to help link people in to social activities and their community and connect them to things that are going to support their and promote their health and well-being. And in addition to that, as Chris mentioned, you know, things that were active or changed the way they were operating during COVID are starting to become more active again. Obviously, we're really mindful of what's happening with a third summer wave that's being expected, but we're also investing in something called a community asset development fund, which is to support the development of assets in the community, and I believe that's a county council pot of money, which has been channeled through something called the Shine Network, which is a network of organisations that support mental well-being. So that process of looking at what activities and what things are in communities and what the gaps are in communities and where can we invest to support groups or organisations to develop and offer and develop social interaction opportunities to give social prescribers something extra to tap into. That's something that's happening as we speak. There's a funding decisions being made about where that's going to be invested. So yes, there are definitely things in the pipeline to support and enhance the development of community assets to address some of the issues raised in this question.
I suppose one of the things that I was concerned about is obviously we're here as a knowledgeable group of people, including the people that sit in our audience now. What about the people that are not knowledgeable? So the isolated people that go, I don't know which way to go. I don't know where to go because I'm in this isolation. So how would they reach out? Because they wouldn't know where to reach. So would there be any what we call in reach to anywhere? Does that make sense? Melanie, are you?
Can I come on that, Pauline?
Yeah.
What I was thinking actually is services are reopening and people are reaching out to people who use those services before or that are known to us, but I'm actually not sure that we do enough marketing of the services that are available. You know, Google can tell us what they're offering, Iceland can tell us what they're offering, but people are often sitting isolated. And as Matthew says, there is social prescribing, there is all sorts of things on offer, but I'm not sure we always get to the people who need it. And I think that's a challenge to us as a group to share the fantastic things we've got. But I would also say to this lady, don't be reticent. You know what your husband enjoyed doing. Mm-hmm. If you don't ask, you won't be connected to it, because we won't know, whichever one of us you come to, we won't know what would really work for you and your husband. And we all want to be person-centered. If he used to go fishing, there will be someone who can go fishing with him. But if you don't ask, that's not what you'll be offered. So I think it's both of us, that the conversations need to restart, but don't assume that you can only have the old-fashioned kind of day services, because that's not true anymore. Yeah, we can support, and it often helps the person who's supporting your husband to go fishing as much as your husband. So, and it can be little things like that that make a huge difference. So I think we have a job to do to be more like salesmen, saying what we've got, but also we'd say to the customer, if you went into Tesco's and the thing that you wanted wasn't on the shelf, you would ask. So and I'm probably going to regret this, when you speak to customer services at the local authority, remember what it's called. It's the customer service centre, and you're the customer. So we both need to change, and I am probably going to regret that when I talk to my colleagues later.
But no, you're absolutely right, Melanie. You're absolutely right. And in a way, it's, you're saying about going to Tesco's and things like that, but isn't it something that many people do online shopping, and it's those services that we have to have. So somebody somewhere has to deliver those services in. And I can remember a very eloquent individual, let's say, that used to be in the county, that said they went on to an ambulance for a 24-hour day. It probably wasn't a day they went on, but what they came across was a lot of people where they were elderly, and they would order food in, but when they ordered this food, obviously they didn't always need all this food. They wanted that contact with one person coming in that week. And this individual saw that actually there were bags of food in their kitchen. Now, obviously, that individual did something about it on that occasion, but made me think, why couldn't that driver, because there'd be several drivers, it would never be the same driver, why couldn't they raise an alert somewhere to you guys to say, there is an individual out there that has got bags of food? Because they were not bothered. Mr. Supermarket, I can't name an individual, but Mr. Supermarket was getting their pound in their purse. So they were not really bothered about the person at the other end that they were delivering to. But if we had that social conscience that said, actually, in Lincolnshire, as much as you guys have all come together, if we got all the supermarkets together and said, should we have a conversation here about the lonely and isolated? How good would that be? There's a challenge for you guys. Hey ho. Sorry, Lorraine's laughing. So yeah,
we'll add it to our many challenges, Pauline.
Well, there are, but that's just one that I thought I'd throw at you. Because again, neighbours, you know, we there's neighbourhood things that we can do, but you know, services going, other services other than you guys of, you know, of health and social care.
And I think that's been prominent throughout COVID as well, showing the number of volunteers, you know, within communities that have been supporting individuals in lots of different ways, which has been absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
But it's, you know, us not losing sight of those voluntary groups and organisations, and making sure that, you know, they're still recognised and still being able to continue that good work that they've been delivering.
And I think that's an absolute, you know, we've got down here, I can see people there that are Connect to Support and Boston Dementia Action Alliance, Managed Care Network, Saliford Dementia Support. There are huge amounts of support out there, but also the people that need the support need to know where to go for it. And often that's not the case.
Just to add, Pauline, that all of those that are listed there do appear on Connect to Support, which people can either look that up on the LCC website, because Connect to Support will list all of the opportunities in an individual's area that they can access to. So it will signpost them to everything that's available, but they can also, if they're not very good at navigating, you know, the web or whatever, or websites, they can still ring the customer service centre and they'll have a look on Connect to Support for them.
Yeah, and I mean, you know, if you've been out and about in Lincolnshire, you know, often you can't even get a signal, let alone a flipping phone call.
Yeah.
let alone work the website. So, you know, again, that comes into what I'm saying about, you know, so often the people that are lonely and isolated, they're not savvy on the internet, and often they don't even like using the phone. They will use it for yes, but it's a bit limited, you know. I know with the pandemic, lots of people, lots of families have tried to get their elders to use the iPads and things like that, and some have been really, really successful. But yeah, so but it's our wonderful system of Wi-Fi. You'd think in wide open spaces it'd be brilliant, wouldn't you? But hey, so right, so more questions. So thank you for that. I think that was a good all-round debate of, you know, of how and where, and brought a lot in on the chat bar of how and what support is out there. So really thank you for that. I'm going to move into another area, which is what I think really key to where people see social. They see social as a fund body. So the next question down is, in view of the current funding thresholds for receiving personal budgets in adult social care and saving assessment at 23,250, how does the panel envisage this will change in the future based on recent reviews and policy recommendations? Chris?
Yeah, I'm happy to start the conversation. So the eligibility for adult care is a determination that's set in the Care Act, which came into force in 2015. The answer to the question is really that we're not fully sure in terms of limits changing at the moment, because these are something that is set nationally. We do know that there are ongoing discussions about future funding in social care at a national level. If these things then change, that will absolutely, it's something Lincolnshire County Council will then need to incorporate into our charging policies, etc. So it does seem like there will be change in the future, but to say what that is a bit premature from our point of view at the moment.
Okay, so that literally comes up from government, and LCC have no control over that.
In terms of the level of the point at which people contribute towards the cost of the care at the moment, that's nationally set.
Okay, that was simple then, wasn't it? Right, so let me see if I've got, does Lincolnshire offer deferred payment agreements? And if so, what is the take-up?
I'm happy to pick this one up if you like.
Yeah.
The answer is yes, we do. And at the moment we have 60. We do have other properties being looked at that are going through the legal process at the moment, but at the moment on deferred payments we have 60 in Lincolnshire.
So does that, it may answer this question as well, with how many people in Lincolnshire receive public funding for long-term social care? Does that come under that one, or?
I think it's linked to, Pauline, it doesn't fully answer the question. So in terms of adult care in Lincolnshire, when we look at, I think, the question around how many people receive public funding for social care, and what we look at and what we report on would say in from between the year 2000 and 2021, and we were providing long-term support to approximately 8,500 people. Approximately 3,000 of those were support in settings such as nursing and residential care, and then a further again, approximately 5,000 were supporting people with long-term needs in the community. What I would say is that we also provide support to over 10,000 carers across Lincolnshire. We've also, I think, issued last year, or 21 in 2020, around 10,000 pieces of equipment as well across Lincolnshire as well. So just to give you a bit of a flavour of the scale of the support, and I'm sure Melanie would probably be able to tell you in terms of the number of home care visits as well that take place across Lincolnshire.
Yeah, does that come under a different heading, Melanie?
No, I think it all comes under people supported by adult social care, and certainly in Lincolnshire, the people in residential homes, there is a balance between those who are funded by Lincolnshire County Council and those who are funded by themselves, and a small proportion are funded by the NHS. But due, I think, partly to the deprivation of our economy and the fact that it's a national threshold, the vast majority of people who have care in their own home in Lincolnshire are state funded, that the self-funder market is very, very small in this county.
Okay. So while I've got you there, Melanie, here's one. I have an elderly mother who is living independently with early stage dementia. She currently lives in social housing and has no assets, and it is very suitable for her. As her condition changes, we as a family will need to reassess her needs. When should we start thinking about her future needs? We do not know what she will need until needs change. Where do we go for support and advice? When should we be planning, and how will this be funded? As a family, we do not have access to funds, and we know that care support is expensive. We want to do what is right for her, and it just says a Lincolnshire resident.
My first answer, Pauline, would be to start planning as soon as possible, particularly so that she can be as involved as she can. One of the issues is that there used to be something called moderate needs, which was funded, and now it's not funded. And so often care and support doesn't start as early as it used to do. But with things like carers allowances and other benefits, you can often afford to have a small amount of support early on, which then gets over that barrier that we heard about with the young man, where people don't want the support because they've got used to the fact that there's somebody coming in maybe once a week just to have coffee with them, which might be from the voluntary sector, or it might be something they choose to pay for. It's up to them. And then gradually you change together over time. And so there's not that cliff edge and not that, oh goodness, I'm hitting a different life stage. But my first thought would be plan soon. You might be able to plan with adult social care, but it may be too early. If it is too early, then get back in touch with me and I will put them in touch with someone who will help them to plan, but not for a fee, because we don't do things like that in Lincolnshire. And hopefully, I think you might be able to work with a neighbourhood team if you're earlier, but it depends how. If you're very, very early stages, there isn't always a funded solution for the planning, simply because there are so many people who are further down the pathway that need the resources to do the planning now. It seems a bit daft, really, because if we could do the planning early, we would solve the crises in advance, but we don't ever seem to be able to get the crises out of the way to do what we all know is right and plan early. And my other thing would be, don't worry. The system does creak, but the system is there to support your loved one and you. Ignore all the headlines about the fact that there isn't, you know, that social care is broken. Social care is broken, but social care in Lincolnshire does tend to work to meet people's needs. But the earlier you can plan, the better, and you can support through things like the social prescribing that Matthew was talking about. If you're in the right bill, if the housing is right, that's a really good thing. If it's not right, you need to plan early. But there is nothing that I actually think that, you know, the red book you get when you're, or the virtual red book you get when you have a baby. Yeah. I actually think that when you get to the back page of that, that's almost where you need to start planning what you want to do for later life. And that's probably not too early.
Yeah. And again, this sort of, I suppose, typifies, and you're right, you are right what he's saying, but it's sort of that chicken and egg, in the sense that you're not going to maybe get too much and you might get a little frustrated, but actually it's better than sticking your head in the sand and going it'll go away, because it won't go away.
It won't go away. Yeah, there's two certainties. It won't go away, and you can't start to plan too early.
Yes.
Those are my two things. Well, how you do it, whether you've got a social network, you're a part of a faith group, a community group, wherever, or reach out to customer services. If it is too early, they'll tell you where to go. Yeah. Or Matthew and his people. So yeah, but never too early, and don't assume that there's nothing there for you.
Yes. And we've got now just come up, which is great, because here we are, is a quick poll. You know, have you made any preparations for social care services you may need when you're older? You know, it is something that, well, I'd love to think I was still 21, but I'm not. I think I got past 21 quite quickly. But we don't ever think that we're going to get that much older where we're going to need something. So, you know, have we prepared? So that will be great. So we'll get that quite quickly. I know Dean's magic on that thing. Great, thanks, Dean. So with that in mind, I think that's really, really beneficial. And I thank you for that update, because I think it goes back to saying what I was saying before, is how do we reach out? And if we start reaching out, we can start reaching out to support people, to, you know, coming back into Robin in saying, you know, how do we keep people healthier, but how do we start people earlier to make preparations for, you know, early onset. If there's early onset dementia in the family, is it something really that you start doing very early? You know, I don't know, perhaps we should really start thinking about that. So thanks for that. Oh, there we go. 100% said no. There we are. So that's one that we could quite easily take up and run with. I think that's a really good one. Thanks, Dean, for that.
Pauline, sorry, I've got my hand. Am I just able to come in on that?
Oh, yeah, Robin? Of course you can.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, from a public health perspective, everything that's just been said is music to my ears, because it's all around prevention.
Yes.
And it is that early intervention. And I really like Melanie's idea of the red book. Thinking about it, I've got a 10-month-old granddaughter who has a red book, an actual physical one, and thinking about, you know, what will it look like when she hits my age? You know, yeah. What will the systems and things look like? And part of the preventative work we do is first and foremost to support people to be, as I said at the beginning, sort of live longer and more independent. But it's all relative to the stage of intervention. And I think one of the key points is that it is very much around that family network, or whatever the carer network is supporting, because a lot of the services are for your more acute cases. Mm-hmm. So it's those early interventions that can be done very low level, that have very low cost as well, but are looking to the future. So from a public health perspective, I 100% support that.
Definitely. So there we go. We've got an action. Is that going to be an action, Robin?
Is what's going to be an action, Pauline?
Well, public health will put a book together that replicates something like the Red Book.
Whether we get to that or not, I'm not going to commit to at this particular moment in time.
Come on, I love actions.
But what I can do is I can take it back to our work with children's services and put it forward. So yes, whether we actually get one, I honestly don't know. It's definitely worth pursuing, though. Definitely.
Okay, good. I'll harass you. Thank you. Right, so we do still have questions. I suppose here's one. Why is there long delays between being transferred from hospital and into the most suitable place within the care system?
Yeah, I'm happy to pick that one up. I think our hospital manager provided some feedback on this for us, Pauline. So I think what we would say is that the hospital teams within adult social care work really hard with colleagues across other parts of the health and care system, as sort of our partners, and they meet twice daily to make sure that all discharges are done in the most timely possible manner and to avoid delays. What we do sometimes see is that there are reasons there for people not having a prompt support. So it's very much about finding the right place for the person to go to. So it's identifying, whether they can return home with the right support, whether it's about moving into some kind of interim support for them to continue in their recovery and reablement as well. So thinking about sometimes it's making sure the right environment is ready for them if they're perhaps going into a rehabilitation bed, and making sure that's the right place and appropriate for them. It may be that there's work that still needs to be done with the person and family to ascertain the wishes and to really think about where the best place is for them to go to. And I think that's really important that we recognise it's about working in a person-centred way, and where possible, the person's choice of where they go to is respected. Sometimes it might be that there are some decisions that need to be made in terms of from our partners to make sure that the discharge can take place in a safe way. There are sometimes conversations that need to be had to make sure we've got the specialist moving and handling plans or equipment in place for people to be able to return either home or to the appropriate environment in a safe way. And sometimes it's really about recognising that it's not always the right thing for the person to be discharged quickly. It might be, it's very much about getting it right in a safe way. And it may be about simple things about practicalities for the person to move home, and perhaps they can't get up the stairs anymore, thinking about getting the environment right. So if they initially need to stay downstairs, it could be about getting furniture moved, special equipment delivered. So those are just a few examples of some of the situations. But one thing that does remain focused throughout with hospital teams is making sure that the discharge from hospital is safe for the person and made for the right reasons.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Anybody else want to come in on
Pauline, can I comment on that? I think I agree with everything that Chris has said, but I think we can't avoid the elephant in the room, which is that if you're going home and you need continuing support, there aren't enough people out there who are prepared to work in that environment, sadly. We are all doing everything we can to recruit. Chris and I sit on a strategic group within the county council that is doing that, but we have to keep trying even harder. And sometimes that does sadly delay people leaving hospital, and I think we can't ignore that, but we are doing everything we can to make it better. So
there's a question here, and I'm going to ask it now because I think it's really relevant, is with the UK leaving the EU, is Brexit going to affect the recruitment of suitably trained and skilled staff needed within the care system?
Shall I come in on that one, Paul?
Yeah.
We didn't think when we looked at this beforehand that it would make much difference because there weren't that many Eastern European people who were intending to go home employed in the care sector. But what I've found out this week from talking to our local enterprise partnership board is that call centres did have lots of Eastern European people. And now that they've not got them, they are actively seeking the care sector to attract people who've got the right customer service manner, who can be taught to use the telephone, and unfortunately for us can earn 50% more than we can afford to pay them. So there is a more of an effect than we were expecting, not because of direct staff gone, but staff who wouldn't previously have got that job in the call centre but can get it now because there isn't the Eastern European person there. And that's a shock that I don't think we were anticipating. And I think the COVID crisis has had an issue in that if you can sit in a nice warm call centre and earn £12 an hour, we need to explain to people that actually you're much better to stay in the adult social care world. You might earn less money, but you've got all that fulfillment and all those fantastic experiences. But at the moment, I think the money versus the responsibility and the difficulty of the last 18 months is undoubtedly having an effect on our recruitment abilities.
Oh, are we going to get any of the Eastern Europeans come back?
I believe there is a lot of lobbying going on to perhaps look at a short-term reduction in the red tape and maybe some short-term visas. But I don't know whether that will go through or not, Pauline. I mean, we're working, ideally we want local jobs for local people, work with our young people to get them, you know, to be doing Chris's job or Matthew's job or Lorraine's job in 10 years time. But we have an immediate crisis, and I know certainly the LEP board have gone off to start to say, please can we do something for this winter, because there is a real potential workforce shortage.
Yeah, and the lower paid jobs are always, I was always in catering management, and it was always the same. You know, the lower paid jobs, they're seasonal, often they're seasonal, and they are low paid, and they are really difficult to, you know, you can pick them up because there's not a lot of, certainly catering, not a lot of training.
You can, but the job, what we don't always get across is I have worked in San Francisco, I've worked in the City of London. I've probably not earned less per hour since I was about 30, but the most fulfilling job I have ever done is hands-on personal care or adult social care, making sure that someone can stay independently in the heart of their community, living their life to the full, is the best job I have ever done. And I've done some really exciting jobs. Yeah.
But when you've got bills to pay, that doesn't always...
No, you do have to be able to pay the rent or the mortgage.
Yeah.
And we do tell government, everybody on this panel has said the same thing, but we don't live in number 11 Downing Street, unfortunately.
No. So, right, we'll rattle on with these because it's good conversation and there's lots coming out. So what does the local authority address? How does the local authority address the concerns of quality and cost? Is this an integral part of the commissioning process? Often quality is compromised to save money. Who wants to pick that one up?
I'm quite happy to do that, Pauline.
Oh, good.
We'll start it up.
Do you know your camera's off, Robin? Is that purpose?
I'm having problems with it. I'm sorry.
Okay, that's fine.
Sometimes
that's fine.
It kicks me out, so I apologise for that.
No, that's absolutely fine.
Thank you. I mean, fundamentally, the commissioning, yes, it is part of the commissioning process. It's an integral part of that. And the commissioning process is a cycle. So it's not just towards the end of a contract, oh, we need to reprocure or we need to renew the contract, let's go like for like or anything like that. The whole part of the commissioning cycle is to look at it through those stages, and that quality and that performance and the impact that it's having, actually delivering what it's supposed to deliver, because the quality side of things is so important, and the customer voice. It's the commissioning is based on a range of things that isn't just the lowest price. Price obviously comes into it, but it's also what we're going to get for that money, because we're basically using taxpayers' money. So there needs to be that assurance that the quality is there, the delivery will be there, the areas that it will support, geographical areas is there. So if it's based on different geographical areas, or it's county-wide, so people who potentially are isolated are still able to access services and that type of thing. So it's not just around the cost. I can't comment on the often quality is compromised to save money. That's somebody's opinion, obviously. From my experience in commissioning with the county council, that isn't the case. That it has looked at the whole and has looked at it in the round as quality, cost, service, all those different elements.
Okay, so does anybody else have any knowledge of commissioning and costs and quality?
Shall I comment from the other side, Pauline, what it feels like to be commissioned? And I would say that Lincolnshire does try to balance quality and cost, but maybe we have to recognise that with the public purse, we can't afford a Rolls Royce, and the local authority doesn't go out to commission a Rolls Royce. But maybe when it's my loved one, that's what I would have liked them to have bought. So there has to be a balance, doesn't there? In an ideal world, we would probably want completely bespoke, limitless social care. But that's not where we are. I mean, I do think the council does try hard to balance the two. And where quality isn't working, I think we do come together, both as providers and commissioners and the frontline qualified staff, to try and solve the quality issues. But if you want fillet steak and chablis with your meal in a care home, that's not going to happen on the public purse. You can get care homes in Lincolnshire with that kind of offer, but not at the public purse, because that wouldn't be right. But the food will be nutritious, you will have a choice, and it will be safely served. So I think it depends on what you mean by quality, but Lincolnshire doesn't do. Some local authorities do backwards auctions of home care packages. The provider that puts the lowest price on the portal gets the package. Lincolnshire has never gone down that route, and I don't think ever would, because it's just not the culture we have.
I suppose from a quality point of view, your quality is it's regulated by the CQC, isn't it? It
is regulated by the CQC, but actually I would say the contract officers that monitor from the local authority and the CCG are much closer. CQC come in regularly or when they are aware of a major problem.
Okay.
And I think the other thing in Lincolnshire is we've tried to create a culture where you know as a service provider or manager when you're not quite getting there. And what we have in Lincolnshire is the opportunity to put your hand up and say, can I have some help? And then if you do that, you do get help. You don't get somebody coming in ticking you off. You can get people to come in and be supportive. And that's what we're really trying to do, Pauline, because the people who will notice first are the people working in the system. And it might be that your quality's slipping because you just can't cope at the moment. During the pandemic, if you had 6 people go off on one shift, with the best will in the world, you can't provide quality care. So you could ring and say 6 people have gone off. And there were times when district nurses would help. Even adult social care contracting team went out and made the breakfast while the care staff got people up. And that to us in Lincolnshire, that's normal. Trust me, it is not normal in the rest of the country. So quality is always an issue, but we do try to say to people, ask for help and you'll get it.
And I suppose as with Healthwatch, we are a watchdog, and the public can feed into us, and you have as providers, you have a standard duty to reply to us. So again, from the public point of view, I know we go back to care homes, we go back to all the statutory organisations, to LPFT, to ULHT, to all the statutory providers, and if circumstances dictate, they have to reply to us within 20 days. That's an obligation. So there are areas whereby we have statutory duties that we have to perform as well within that watchdog role. So yes, there is, and that, you know, those are based around, you know, quality and performance as well, and holding to account what you are and supposed to do.
Could I just come back in on that?
Yeah, yeah, of course you can.
Thank you. And just picking up something that Melanie said, it is appropriate for both of your comments. Yeah, yes, what you've just said is absolutely spot on about the responding, but it's Lincolnshire County Council's approach of continuous improvement to actually be looking at it together as the partnership of the provider and the commissioner, as Melanie said, to solve the what the issues could be. And it's around performance, but it's also building on the successes. So when things have gone very, very well, and it's sharing that amongst the provider forums and so on and so forth. And one thing I will just bring in now is something called the Joint Strategic Needs Assessment, which is something that we have the lead for within public health, which in essence is bringing together the evidence to say what are the right services to be commissioned across Lincolnshire. And to give the people who are commissioning those, whether it be the county council, whether it be CCG, other NHS elements, to be able to say this is what the evidence is telling you. And what we did a couple of years ago was some really good engagement across the county, where we actually spoke about various different areas that are in the Joint Strategic Needs Assessment, and with various different groups, various different members of the public, town councils, etc. And that getting that voice, that was just one element of it. And I think this is really important around, if you go back to Chris's point very early on this morning around that, looking at that quality and that quality improvement, it's got to be a key to the success of what we want to do. So just to reiterate that.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, no, that's.
Can I just come back in? I think, don't get me wrong, I think we do balance Lincolnshire's quality and cost in Lincolnshire, but I do think there is a risk that the lack of money in the whole system is going to get us to a point very quickly where we can't do that, particularly around our workforce. They, as we said in the previous question, they do have to be able to pay their rent and their mortgage, and there is a need for national government to do something about the funding in our sector. There's Lincolnshire together, we make every penny do its work. But I think if you asked our Director of Social Services or any of the other strategic leaders, we are getting close to the point where there just isn't enough money to maintain quality services in a sustainable way. But I'm hoping that the reform that is happening in the background will change that shortly. But people can be assured that we will make the money go as far as it possibly can, because that's the culture in this county. But I wouldn't like people to think that we weren't coming close to a very critical problem with there just not being enough funding for quality care to be maintained.
And I respect that, Melanie, and I appreciate what you've just said, and I thank you for it, because that's, I think you are absolutely right. We've had winter pressures, we've had so many different things, and everything we've risen to a challenge. And like you, I have been around a very, very long time and a lot of different tables and heard many, many conversations. And I respect the people that have, you know, put those very difficult plans into operation. But I do think that we are getting to the point of there's not enough manure to go on those fields, I'm afraid. So the crops won't grow, as many farmers would say. So now I've got another question, and I'm not sure who's going to answer this one. So take your pick. So over the last, because I think this affects every single person that lives in Lincolnshire. So over the last few years, I, like many others, have had to make a contribution to adult social care through my council tax on my property. Living in a Band D property, I currently pay £1,245 to Lincolnshire County Council and £118.25p per year for the adult social care. How much income is brought into the county by this precept across all property bands, A to H? And what is it actually being spent on? There is never any information supplied with the annual statement, and requests for information from LCC seem to fall on deaf ears. And that came in from an East Lindsey District Council resident who is not attending the event. Does anybody have any knowledge in this arena? No? You're all on mute. Oh.
Yeah, I think perhaps one that we need to take away to have some more thought with colleagues across different parts of the local authority. I think it's fair to say that funding comes into the local authority from a variety of different ways, and we recognise in that part of the funding from the local authority gets us from increases in council tax potentially. I think the local authority for the financial year 2021 did increase council tax by the 2% social care precept, which provided in addition some contribution towards the increase in costs, which we know there are increasing costs each year for the local authority. There wasn't a precept applied for the council tax year in 2021-22, but you can find more information in the council budget that's published every year if people would like further detail, but I'm happy to take that away and come back to you with some additional information and links to where that can be found. But I'm afraid that's probably where my knowledge ends.
Yeah, no, and I appreciate that, and I sort of, because I suppose, you know, where I say it probably affects us all, it affects us all that have our own home. And I look back on my council tax bill and I thought, yeah, I just accept it. I accept it as it is. And then I looked at it and I thought, well, actually it is denoted specifically for adult social care. And I looked a little bit further and I thought, okay, so actually there's the Police and Crime Commissioner as well. And they again have the same sort of conversation that Melanie's just had with us, that, you know, we want more and more and more from our police and we want them on the streets, and when we live in rural and there's nobody here to come to our aid when whatever. However, one of the big difference, and both the local authority and the police service, public services, so there shouldn't be any difference. The big difference is that the Police and Crime Commissioner give us as the public, they give a leaflet that tells us what they've done and how they've spent that money. So my question back is, why do Lincolnshire County Council, if it is adult social care, in this very clearly this resident is saying there is never any information supplied, neither in the annual statement or request for information. Now that is not acceptable when it is public money and it's specific for adult social care. So why is that? Why is that not happening? And why can't that be something that was put in as an extra? And why can't we have something that is fed back to us? So maybe when you're asking the question to come back, that is a specific question from the chair.
Yeah, we'll take that away, Pauline.
Thank you. Thank you. Lorraine, did you want to say something?
No, as I say, we have a resources directorate that deal with all those types of things,
Yeah.
you know, and produce the annual statement on a yearly basis that usually sets all that out. So I'm quite surprised that it's not set out in the annual budget statement, but we'll, as Chris says, we'll take it back and come back to you.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, and I, you know, I accept that you probably are not the right people to answer the question. But when it's coming from a member of the public, we would like it answered. So, and it's coming the side panel also. If you're a homeowner, you would be expected to pay for your care costs when you reach older age if you went into a care home. So why should homeowners pay now and then again by selling homes later in life? So I suppose there's a little bit of sort of controversy there into, you know, it really does need that clarification if you think about it as to the what and the why. So Matthew.
Pauline, can I just come in? Is that all right? Just while I've been talking, I've just gone onto the Lincolnshire County Council website and just searched budget, and they publish every year something called a budget book. So there's a document that I've just got in front of me now called the Council Budget for 2021-22, and I haven't read it. Obviously, it's a 150 odd page document, so it's a big old thing. But in terms of that transparency, there is a line on the contents page that talks about the council precept. So I think the information is out. It's like any information about anything that we've talked about, and across a number of these questions today, it's where you get it and how you find it and how you navigate it. This isn't obviously a leaflet that's going to drop onto people's doorsteps, is it? So, but yeah, there's information out there clearly.
I suppose, like I say,
can I just say as well?
Yeah.
I'm just going to add as well, just generally in the concept of spending and funding, because this is the thing that's come up across the piece. We've had conversations about quality of care and that balance between costs and quality. We've had questions which are around funding and self-funders and how many people receive local authority funding. Inevitably, when we're talking about public sector and statutory duties and statutory services, inevitably there's a conversation about how that is funded and what the model for funding it is, and ultimately, and I think the public purse has been mentioned a few times. I think we've got, you cannot remove it from that political context around the fact that these are political decisions about what we prioritise in our society, what we value. You know, we put more value on shelf stacking than we do on personal care. We put more value on certain things than we do other things. And I think that whole conversation about fundamentally changing the funding model, because we're grabbing it from people's council tax, we're taking it from charging and from, you know, people paying contribution from their own pocket as an additional stealth tax, if you like. We've got a situation where you have people who are self-funding care, in effect subsidising the provision of care for people who are publicly funded. These are very political issues, and I think it's right and it's great that Healthwatch are giving people the opportunity to consider this and think about this and think about what it means for us as a society as well. So I just wanted to say that. Well done, everyone.
No, I really appreciate that, and thank you, Matthew. There is this other question actually that says, how is social care funded? And it says, as a person without dependents and no property, assets to fund any care support I might need in the future, I am concerned what will happen to me. How do I plan for something in the future that currently I do not know I might need? And that's from a Lincolnshire resident. And I think that sort of dibs into what you just alluded to, is that it's almost a question that you can't answer, because if you, like you say, you could give him a question, you could give an answer now, but if in however long until we get a next election, that could all change. It could be totally tipped on its head. Is that what you just said, more or less, isn't it?
Well, I think it's when the Care Act was first proposed and implemented, there was something called the Dilmot reforms, which were part of that, which was a proposal of a different way of funding social care. You know, there's various models around the world of insurance, of you know, greater grants. You know, there are parts of the world, parts of the UK even, where people aren't expected to contribute to their social care needs. So there are decisions to be taken about how social care is funded. I think and they will be countrywide. In the here and now, in terms of people's anxieties about what their future holds and how will they pay for the care, then people need to understand that the process of assessing and determining whether someone needs and requires care and support from the state and from the local authority, that will always have an element of financial assessment to determine whether or not that person pays contribution. Because even though we've talked about on the call today difference between self-funders and state-funded care, the vast majority of people who have state-funded care are also paying a contribution to it from their own income, from their income support, whatever their financial circumstances are. There will be an element of contribution to it, but which is determined through a financial assessment process. So I think the key thing is that it's how we help people understand that and talk them through that and give them the information, advice that they need to consider that as part of their planning for their future. But it's out there on things like Connect for Support, and again, from a neighbourhood working point of view, that's one of the things we do, is try and ensure that people around the system are as informed as possible so they can help people understand what the situation is, help navigate through it, because we recognise it's really complex.
Just a question for you, Matthew, while I've got you in the spotlight. How do people come into the neighbourhood system, if you like?
Neighbourhood working in terms of the work we do directly with people who are receiving care and support, the nature of what we do in neighbourhood working is work with those organisations that are already set up as statutory. So, for example, we don't have our own separate referral route or call centre or customer service centre. We're there to support and facilitate the right things happening locally. So we don't have a public-facing referral route in. So, but we will identify people that we feel we need to be better sighted on through some things, such as things like high intensity user lists, through frequent attendances to accident, emergency or the acute sector. We'll try and take an intelligence-led view of where we need to focus our efforts. But all of our teams around the table, whether they be from social care, from the community nursing team, from the hospice teams, from the specialist teams, have the opportunity to say, really struggling with this, I've got some really complex issues here, or how can we do something different? Can I bring this into that neighbourhood team environment? So there's no set route or pathway into neighbourhood working. It's a more kind of all-encompassing model than that. And the last thing we'd want to do is create yet another service, yet another front door. That's one of our challenges. There's so many different allegedly single points of access or points of access into the system that actually one of the things we'd like to do is reduce that and look at a more local. I would sooner have a genuine localised, this is where you go in Louth or East Lindsey area where you need support with a range of needs, and we've got the right people around that cross-system sort of handling system to get the right things happening sooner or later. But that's bigger than today, I'm afraid. That's quite a major.
Actually, I think that's really, really good, because in a way, I think I'll disseminate that down to the fact that you would find me, I wouldn't find you.
Yeah, but as I say, if anyone, part of what we do is market neighbourhood working. It's neighbourhood working is different to neighbourhood team, if you like. The concept of working at a neighbourhood level of us talking to each other as having a joined up approach is something that we promote and support and enable. So very few people actually receive assessment from the clinical team. So if I take Louth, for example, population of 90,000+ people living in Louth, I have one whole-time equivalent clinical nurse working in the team. So we aren't a service in our own right that go, but occasionally where we've got really complex situations, we will pick up and we'll do some complex assessment activity. But a lot of what we're doing is coordinating activity, trying to get the right things happen, trying to talk to the right people, and trying to make sure that people are aware of what they need to be aware of, so we can get the right things happening. So we're not a service in our own right.
No, but that's reassuring, the fact that you are coordinating and talking, and you know the right people to talk to. And if and that's why I say you would contact me, because if you're flagging me up as that person that's in need, then you've got my best interests at heart.
Yeah.
And so you're bringing me into your world rather than me going, I need you. So and because it's localized, somebody would know me.
Yeah, so I know all the people. I know the names of people in Louth who are having the most frequent attendances to hospital. And what we say to the team is, are we doing right by these people? Is there anything different we could do that's going to help this person to not have the experience that they're having, to improve the outcomes for them? Do we understand what the issue is? Do we understand what's important to them? Do we understand why this is occurring?
Yeah.
And it's not about us coming in and sorting it out and rescuing it. It's about making sure the right things are happening and asking the questions and providing some of that clinical challenge sometimes. I
suppose I'm liking it. My caring role ended 13 years ago, and prior to that, my husband, he had heart failure. So obviously, you know what the trajectory of heart failure is like. It's like living on a roller coaster, and sort of initially you feel like you've got an elastic band pinging you in and out of hospital. But one of the things, and we're on sort of social care. I never came into a social care arena until I had to fill in, and I can't remember the name of the form now, but it's the continuing care form. And he came out of hospital to die at home, but he didn't die on time. So it had to go into a form that had to be completed, and it had to be completed with everybody in the room. It's a
decision support, or a DST.
Yeah. And that is the only time in all of the years of caring that I ever came in contact with social services. And people all sat in my conservatory and started talking about all these different things. And it was so focused on this one form, which I think it's still out there now, and it's horrible, isn't it? And it's like, just go away. Stop talking about it. I know he's going to die. Just go away and fill your own forms in, because I don't really want to know at this point. And it was so horrible. And that was my only memories of social care. Does that make sense to you? In the fact that, that could have been done, and you could have handled that situation such a different way. And I think it probably is handled in a different way now. But
it's difficult to get it right, isn't it? Because on the one hand, we absolutely need to work in partnership with people and carers to get the right things happening. And it sounds like what you're saying is you'd prefer that to have happened away from you and in the offices somewhere. And
I had a good relationship with obviously with the heart failure team, but in the same token, nobody pre-warned me about this. And it was like, and I was reasonably savvy in what was going on, but it was like, what? Why are you being so clinical? I know that sounds stupid, but you're not being in any way personable. And so you forgot that we were people on the other side. I suppose that's the point that I'm making in all of that. And it was too, it was too clinical. And it's like, I don't really care who pays for what. The very crux of this is, my husband's dying, go away, sort your form out and give me the bill at the end, because I don't really care. It's not going to stop him dying. And I get the fact that you've got the form to fill in, but, think of us as human beings. And I think that's what I'm hearing you say. I suppose that's the point I'm making, is that with your neighbourhood working, you're hearing and seeing more of the person, and you're working with that individual because you're flagging them up is, right, this is happening and we need to talk about this. And you're talking about it more away from the individual and then going into the individual rather than going in en masse.
Yeah.
Does that make sense now? I've probably explained it a little bit better. Yeah. So yeah. So that's how I see it. But yeah. So we are coming up to the golden hour of Ding Dong 12, your lunch is calling. We have gone through so much, and I really appreciate everything we've talked about. Does anybody want a final word before I say my final words?
Pauline, can I just say a big thank you to being included in this conversation? I think it's really helpful to be able to do this. And again, oftentimes providers are not included. It's just adult social care statutory. So thank you very much for the invitation.
It's been a pleasure, Melanie, and I thank all of you, actually. I thank all of you for your honesty, your passion, and your commitment, because, you know, like I said, I've been around a long time, but I know some of you have as well, and your commitment to what you're doing for the residents of Lincolnshire in everything that you do. And, you know, sometimes we forget that you are also, I don't know, but I presume some of you are also residents of Lincolnshire and you access the same services that we do. You know, and you sit in A&E as well and go, oh my God, what am I doing here? So yes, we all have the same things that, you know, we buff up against. And somebody's just put in, thanks Bex, because that was one of the things that, yes, I do think we do need somebody from the voluntary sector that also on the panel that you know, have that overview of what we can do and what we can pull from the voluntary sector as well. I could have answered a few of the questions, but I say I sit here as chair of Healthwatch at YourVoice Healthwatch and director of HW Links, so I sort of sit in a different theme here. So, but yes, I think that's one that is missing. Bex, I take your point. Somebody else, yeah, GP surgeries, practice care coordinators, advanced nurses, neighbourhood working, yeah, and mental health. Yes, thank you. And Marie is saying, wanted to say thank you to Pauline and Lorraine for the panel for listening to me. Really do appreciate it. Yes, thank you, Maria, and hopefully you have got support from Zoe. Yes, hearing from Lorraine and Zoe. So yes, take care of yourself, very much so, Maria. If you don't take care of yourself, you can't look after anybody else. So very much so. And I do thank you all. We will follow up with any questions that we haven't managed to get to answer. I think we've answered most of them on the pre-questions, and I think we've answered, I don't think we had too many come in on the chat bar, but what we haven't answered we will follow up on. And obviously the one coming back of delving down into, thanks Matthew for finding that very long detailed report, budget report or whatever it was, but we'll look into that one. But thank you so much, and it's back to your day job or your lunch, whichever. But thank you, all of you. And one of the things I think we can come back out with is the fact that our improvements that we want to look at how we can improve, make them local, carers, both aspects of carers and that quality, but we must keep in our minds that we do have risks. There is not enough money and there's not enough people, and we must maintain that risk factor. And yes, the NHS may not be political as much. The local authority is, because you have your councillors within there, and the baby gets thrown out with the bathwater when a new government comes in, and I've seen that happen more times than what. But the NHS do, because protocols change, things do change, although the NHS looks like it keeps going, but yeah, things that have happened just do change. So we are all government ruled, politically focused, whatever it is, but let's just keep our focus. Let's keep our focus on doing the best we can for Lincolnshire and the things that we do well. We're all people and we're all doing a great job. So I thank you, and thank you more. So have a lovely lunch, and once again, thank you for being part of the panel and part of At Your Voice for Healthwatch at Lincolnshire. Thank you.
Welcome. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thanks everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.